Joseph's story has always held my attention, but how can I relate the story of Joseph to the lives of the people that are in my congregation?
Always a question, Paul, as we are called upon not only to understand Holy Scripture, in this case the story of Joseph, but also to communicate to people so it impacts their lives. Let me perhaps get at this by means of an event I went through as a child. And I'm convinced that at that point, as a 5-year-old child, my mother tried to kill me. Now, before you think less of my mother, let me tell you what was going on. My mother was a great biscuit maker. She still is. She makes biscuits that would probably make Colonel Sanders turn green with envy. But I was always wondering, what was the secret to my mother's biscuit success? So one day she said she was going to make up a new batch of biscuits. And I thought, this is my chance, especially when the cat chased the dog outside the back door. My mother had to leave her biscuit making and chase the dog who was chasing the cat. This was my opportunity. I took it. There was a big bowl of something white. I thought, this is the secret to my mother's biscuit success. And I put a big spoonful of flour in my mouth. And what did I say? Yuck! Well, this isn't the secret. Then I saw some more white ingredients. And I put a spoonful of that in my mouth. And it was salt. Oh, this can't be it. Then there was something else white. It was shortening. Ooh, it was creamy. It looked like whipped cream. I thought, this is it. This is the secret of my mother's biscuit recipe. So I put a big spoonful of shortening in my mouth, and I went, yuck! At that point, I was convinced. My mother is trying to kill me. Right? Not at all. The fact is, my mother was taking these ingredients who on their own didn't taste very well and mixing them together so that together these ingredients would create a biscuit out of this world. In short, that's the life of Joseph. He has all of these bad ingredients going for him. He's his father's favorite, but that really doesn't get him anywhere other than a pit. And he's sold to some Ishmaelites who are also called Midianites, and they take him to Egypt and sell him as a slave to Potiphar. You think that's a good job? Think again. Potiphar's wife becomes passionate for Joseph, wants him to go to bed with her. Joseph, we're told in chapter 39 of Genesis, is very handsome, kind of like Tom Cruise, who my wife thinks is good looking, but I continue to remind her that he's rather short and dumpy in person. I need you to know that. Going on. Here is this Tom Cruise, Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson kind of a guy named Joseph. And Potiphar's wife is rebuked, and there is probably no one more vicious than a rebuked woman, and she slam dunks Joseph. He lands in prison. There he is, wasting away, interpreting dreams. The butler and the baker get out, but they forget all about Joseph. One is killed, the other forgets. What kind of a life is this? It looks as though all of these distasteful ingredients are being shoved down Joseph's mouth. And over again, things go from bad to worse. You might as well be a Chicago Cub fan. Well, what happens? You know the story. Finally, God raises up Joseph. He's 17 years old in Genesis 37 when he has these two dreams about being Lord over his brothers. Now, when we meet him in the latter chapters of Genesis, Joseph is 40 years old. But finally at 40, he gets his break. All of these distasteful ingredients come together, and God creates something beautiful by which the people, Israel, and hence the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob goes on. How so? There's famine in the land, so by a series of journeys, all of Joseph's brothers and his father Jacob make it to Egypt, and they can eat, and the seed is sustained and preserved. What's it all mean? It means that in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph says this, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, for the saving of many lives." The life of Joseph shows us that God takes all of these distasteful ingredients in life, being rejected by brothers, having a dead-end job, being thrown in prison, wasting away when people forget about you behind prison bars. All of these distasteful ingredients, and God makes something beautiful out of that. The secret, you see, is understanding how it all works together. And the life of a pastor, in large part, is encouraging people to see all of the distasteful ingredients in life and using the life of Joseph to indicate the truth of Romans 8, verse 28 and 29. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose, so that they might bear the image of Christ and be conformed to His life. That's what Paul is saying in Romans 8, that God allows all of the distasteful events so it all works for our good and the Father's glory as we become more like Christ. That's how we might relate the life of Joseph to a parishioner's struggles and sufferings. Having said that, I want us now to have an overview of the book of Genesis by means of this slide. And I want you to see the seed promise from 3:15, going from Noah to Shem, and all the way down from Shem to Terah, from Terah to Abraham and Isaac, and then to Jacob, and then through Jacob to the 12 tribes of Israel. And there you can also locate Joseph and Benjamin, whose mother was Rachel, and then the other sons, and one daughter, Dinah, who then are part of Jacob's family through Bilhah and Zilpah and Leah. But I can't overestimate the fact that as we look at the life of Joseph, we see that he has an opportunity to hold a grudge, but instead he holds grace for those who hurt him and those who denied him. And we would want people to know that there's a divine plan, a plan where all things work together for good. The secret is in understanding how it all works together.